Welcome to the latest episode of the Real World Nutrition Podcast. This is episode 243. Can you calculate exactly what your body needs and why it's not that simple? Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Real World Nutrition Podcast. I'm Shelley, a registered dietitian nutritionist, and I've been doing this work for over 25 years. I should say I've been a dietitian for over 25 years, doing the podcast for about 5 years now. And today I'm going to address something that comes up a lot, both inside the classroom where I teach sports nutrition at a local community college, but I also hear these questions outside of the classroom as well. And these are questions such as, how many carbohydrates do I need exactly? How many calories should I eat? How do I know if I'm getting the right balance of vitamins and minerals? How can I guarantee I'm meeting my needs? And honestly, these are reasonable questions. People want precise numbers, especially if they have specific goals and are having a difficult time reaching them. And nutrition is often presented in a very mathematical way. There is indeed a lot of math that goes on with nutrition, especially behind the scenes when I do calculations for people. And there are numbers everywhere. We have calories, we have macros, we have protein targets, we have hydration equations, vitamin recommendations, apps that track everything down to the gram, or at least it seems like they track everything down to the gram. We have wearables that tell us how many calories we burn and so much more. And because of that, people start thinking that nutrition must work like a calculator. But the reality is that our bodies are not calculators and nutrition is not exact at the individual level. So one comparison I use frequently is to help people think about how nutrition and our body work, is to think about our cars. Whether you have a car or not, everybody knows what those are. And let's take the example of if we need to think about the week ahead, and we need to calculate exactly how much gasoline my car will need or how much charge your car will need. So at first it sounds pretty simple. Yeah, I need 12 gallons or whatever it might be. But then start thinking about all the variables. When you're driving in your car, there's probably going to be traffic. Maybe you drive somewhere unexpectedly. Maybe a meeting gets canceled. Maybe you stop at the grocery store, maybe take a detour, maybe go somewhere entirely different. And suddenly, how much gas you need in the week ahead became less precise because you didn't have the exact route and all these variables considered. And that's just how our bodies work. There's simply too many moving parts, too many variables to get exact. So I want to talk first about energy equations. So energy equations meaning energy calories. So how many calories does our body need? How many calories are we burning for all these things? So energy equations are estimates. And we always think of this in nutrition. We use these equations to estimate needs. Now the one that's most commonly used, and I've used this one for quite a while, is called the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation. And this equation estimates our resting energy needs using our height, our weight, our age, and our sex. And then after we plug that information into the equation, we add an activity factor. And that gives us a starting point. Now I'll just make a comment about the activity factor. In all my years, people overestimate their actual activity. So even when we calculate in an activity factor, that's going to make the equation a little bit off. So again, we're estimating. But all of this is a starting point, not an exact answer. Now, I'll mention this, the equation, you can look it up. It's Mifflin, M-I-F-F-L-I-N, Saint, S-T, and then J-E-O-R. So that's just for you nerds who want to look it up. So, and I don't blame you, I would have been that one too. But let me talk about what that equation and other equations that estimate our needs can't account for. individual differences in metabolism, our stress levels, our sleep quality, our hormone levels, and we have over 50 hormones in the human body. Whether we're having illness or in recovery, environmental temperature, that has an impact. Daily movement outside of exercise, digestion, the act of digesting food actually burns calories, genetics. So these are all variables that equations it would be impossible to account for these things. So let's use this example. Let's say we have two people, same age, same sex, same height, same weight, same estimated activity level. So we plug their information into the equation, it's going to come out to be exactly the same. If they're the same age, sex, height, weight, activity level. But in real life, their actual needs could differ by several hundred calories a day. One person may naturally move more throughout the day. One may recover faster from exercise. One may sleep poorly and feel more fatigued. One may have a naturally higher metabolic rate. So these are things that equations cannot perfectly capture at all. It just can't. And even having a wearable won't capture all of that. So this brings us to an important concept in nutrition. It's bioindividuality. So this means each person responds differently to food, movement, sleep, stress, and lifestyle factors. So even when two people look identical on paper, their bodies can function differently. So I know this may seem obvious to people, but when we're talking about calculating numbers, people don't take this part into consideration. So when I talk about how their bodies function differently, let's take some more examples here. Some people feel satisfied eating 3 meals a day. Others do better with smaller meals and snacks. Some people tolerate higher carbohydrate intake very well, and despite what you may see on social media, it varies, and some people do tolerate higher carbohydrate intake. Other people may prefer distributing carbohydrates differently throughout the day. Some people will feel energized after certain meals, while others will feel sluggish after the exact same food. This is normal variability. And this is one reason when we talk nutrition recommendations, they're given as ranges rather than exact numbers. We're talking to population and given population recommendations, like I was talking about with the dietary guidelines, we have to be somewhat vague, give these ranges. And when I work with people one-on-one, I get more precise, but we'll never, ever, ever have an exact number here. Another thing we have to consider is that our bodies are dynamic. That means we adapt. Our bodies are constantly responding to environment and behaviors. And most of us, we don't think about this. We just naturally adjust our intake without consciously calculating everything. In the warmer months, we tend to eat less. In the cooler months, we tend to eat more. And that's just natural. It's just a natural thing. Here's some other examples. After a hard workout, what happens? Hunger often increases. And that makes sense because we just used more energy. And on a less active day, we may have a lower appetite. Meals higher in fiber or higher in protein may keep someone feeling fuller longer, where a lighter meal can lead to hunger returning sooner. But this is something that I want to get people to touch base on, or get back to basics on this. These are feedback systems. So if we're feeling full, that's feedback our body's giving us to tell us we don't need to eat right now. And if we're feeling hungry, that's another feedback system that's telling us, hey, we need to be fed. And the body doesn't care what time it is. It's sending these messages because it knows, our bodies know what we need. Now here's another concept. We eat foods, not nutrients. So this is something I say often. Even at the end of a 12, 15, 16-week nutrition class I teach, I wrap up the class by saying this. We eat food, not nutrients. So I don't go to a restaurant and order a protein with a side of carbohydrates and a drizzle of fat. I order a meal, maybe a steak, a baked potato, vegetables, and a salad, and the nutrients are within the food. Nutrition science separates nutrients because that helps us study how the body works, but everyday eating doesn't need to function at that level of precision. Here's the tip. Most meals naturally contain a mix of nutrients if we're including foods from all of the food groups. And over time, those nutrients tend to balance out when we eat a variety of foods consistently. So I want to address this obsession with exactness. I think social media and tracking apps have intensified this desire for precision. And people do want exact answers. Exactly how many grams of carbohydrates, exactly how many calories, exactly how much protein, exactly how many milligrams of magnesium or whatever nutrient it might be. But the truth is that nutrition rarely works that way in real life. And even food labels are estimates. Calorie databases use averages. And even nutrient recommendations, as I've said, are based on population estimates. There's variability everywhere. So this is the important thing as well. Patterns matter more than preciseness. And this is a shift I often try to help people make. So instead of chasing exactness, focus on patterns. If you eat balanced meals most of the time, if you include variety, if you include enough fruits, vegetables, protein foods, fiber, and healthy fats overall, if you have habits that are consistent over weeks, months, and years, these things matter far more than whether you hit an exact number on a single day. Now, when can more structure be helpful? So I just want to make it clear, structure doesn't have to be useless. Some people do benefit from more deliberate planning. I remember in the early days of COVID, a lot of us probably did this just out of boredom. We were foraging, looking for everything. And so I decided then, that April, that I needed to have a time, certain times a day where I ate. And I picked those times and I stuck to them. That required more deliberate planning. And we were all going through a lot then. But here's other cases where deliberate planning may be helpful. If athletes are training at a high level, so Olympians and other professional athletes do need to be much more precise. Individuals managing diabetes, people with kidney disease, individuals working through certain medical conditions. That's a very broad example, but it makes more sense when people are in the throes of that medical condition. But even then, there's still flexibility. So I want to emphasize this. This goal is not obsessive precision. The goal is supporting health, performance, and what I find is important is sustainability, meaning this is not a temporary thing. This is something you can do all the time. Because the mental side of this matters too. And this is one thing I worry about sometimes is when people become overly fixated on tracking. And I'll just say, in the past, I laugh at myself because of the person I was back then. I was overly fixated on tracking. Oh, long time ago. We're talking more than 15 years ago. But micromanaging every nutrient can become mentally exhausting. And for some people, it can contribute to anxiety around food. And I had a student recently say, I don't understand why you tell us not to count macros. I just said, well, it's not necessary to count macros. If people want to do it, that's okay. But people don't need to OCD their macros. Nutrition should support your life, not consume it. And there's a difference between being informed and becoming obsessive. So when people say they count their macros, maybe they need to do that for them to feel that they have control over the balance of their meals. Based on my profession, what I've been doing for so long is I can look at a plate and see that it's pretty balanced and don't need to count those macros. So again, this is where I want to just emphasize here that real world nutrition is flexible. That's one of the biggest themes of my work, real world nutrition, is we've got to live life in the real world. So we're able to adapt to social events, travel, busy schedules, family life, stressful periods, holidays, different goals and seasons of life. And if nutrition only works under highly controlled conditions, it's probably not sustainable in the long term. And I've seen this a lot, the highly controlled conditions. This is a recent example I came across where I had an individual who had completed a fitness competition last year, and she was not able to let go of that highly controlled eating environment that she had been conditioned to for the purposes of that fitness competition. And that's no way to live. Now, some people live like this all the time, and I've seen people pack 5 days worth of chicken breast to go on vacation. And it's like, okay, if you're okay with that, fine. But I mean, as a dietitian, I want people to enjoy things. So again, what is sustainable for you? So I want to wrap up with some key takeaways here. Can we estimate nutrition needs? Absolutely we can. Can we calculate exact needs with complete precision? Not really. Our bodies are dynamic. They are influenced by so many variables every single day, moment by moment. We can't expect our bodies and our system to function exactly the same every single day. So therefore, nutrition recommendations have a useful framework and a useful starting point. But health is built through patterns over time, not through perfectly curated or calculated spreadsheets. Balanced meals, variety, consistency, and flexibility matter far more than chasing these exact numbers every single day. And honestly, that mindset tends to make nutrition feel a lot more manageable. All right, everyone, that wraps up this episode. Few things to just say here. As always, I have a link in the show notes to a blog that's related to this episode. If you found this helpful or useful, or you know someone who would benefit from hearing the information in this episode, forward it to them or share the information with them. And I would love to have a review or positive comments for the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. That just helps with feedback and helping me with understanding how things are going. All right, everyone. As I said, that's it for this week's episode of Real World Nutrition. Take care and bye for now.